Chapter 7. The Way of the Silence. As we have said, getting a new insight in scientific prayer calls for unlearning many attitudes and practices that we have become conditioned to over many years. These changes do not come easily. We are faced with the need to perceive a larger thought of God, which may be as difficult as the mental adjustment required of the people of Columbus's day after he had proved the world to be round. It was actually several hundred years before people could see a sunrise or sunset without perceiving a flat world. And today, we can never take for granted that we have disposed of the God out there perception and totally established ourselves in the present. So, to repeat, prayer is not trying to reach for God, not even to reach God. It is giving up the very desire to reach. We have talked about praying to God, sending our appeal to the man upstairs. In this context, our prayer is a performance that we put on for his eyes and ears. However, if we can just get the perspective of the presence, then God is not someone to pray to, but a depth of awareness and energy to pray from. Thus, a vital step in prayer is focusing on that depth. The religious student of the Western world has been strongly conditioned to religious dualism, the perception of God and humanity. Thus, we Westerners have found it extremely difficult to understand the Oriental concept of monism, the awareness of one basic spirit, one mind, one life substance. Thus, though in recent times there has been a widespread interest in the Eastern practice of meditation, in most cases it has been taken out of the context of the oneness of God and humanity. The emphasis has been instead upon consciousness expansion, upon relaxation response. These are extremely helpful states, but they can never lead a person to true self-awareness. This can only come through practicing the presence, or the realization of oneness with the ever-present divine flow. The word meditation conjures up the image of a scantily clad guru sitting cross-legged on a chaise, perhaps holding a bouquet of flowers in his hands. It is not surprising that most clergymen reject meditation as a heretical practice because it has come from what they refer to as pagan religions of the East. Obviously, it meets with resistance because it turns a person away from the dependence on dogma, ritual, and clergy intermediaries. Thus, it is a threat to the religious establishment. However, the inward art, as Bradford calls meditation, is an emphasis on turning within, touching the depths of your inner self, the point where God is manifesting as you. It is a vital step in prayer that has its roots for the Western seeker in Jesus' call to enter into thine inner chamber and having shut the door, pray to the Father in secret. Matthew 6, verse 6. It is the absence of this meditation process that has been the missing key to the power of the whole Judeo-Christian concept of prayer. Thus, the prayer of institutional religion has deteriorated into a performance of words, form, and ritual, with little or no real communion, no silence, no listening. We are suggesting 3 basic steps or stages in the process of scientific prayer. 1. Relax and let go. 2. Turn inward to become one with the secret power. 3. Project this power with an affirmation or treatment. This last step will be dealt with in the next chapter. Imagine, if you will, a 19th century fire department. Firefighting often consisted of forming bucket brigades between a source of water and the fire. Buckets of water would be filled from a well or stream and passed on by means of a human chain, with the last person in the chain throwing the buckets of water onto the fire. It was a crude but often effective system. But just imagine the buckets being passed on through the human chain without having been first dipped in the water. How foolish the last person would feel as they threw their buckets of nothing onto the fire. And so it is with prayer that consists of rattling off words without taking time to touch the inner wellspring of living water. Meditation has become a popular word in the past 30 years, but it has been a confused term. It has been thought of as a thing. One may say, "Oh, yes, I meditate," or "No, I don't meditate, but I would like to learn. Tell me how." And right at this point, we become vulnerable to all kinds of delusion because of the many different ways that exist. Of course, the person we're asking gives their particular way authoritatively as the way. The great yoga master, Aurobindo, said that it is not necessary to be told how to meditate. He held that whatever you need will come of itself, if in your practice and at all times you are sincere and keep yourself open to the divine force. This should be considered by all those who have gotten into meditation. It is an important insight, suggesting that you are a part of a wholeness which is God. So there is nowhere to go in meditation. It is not trying to get into something or out of something or up to something. And it is not trying to do something. Actually, it is not doing. Meditation, thus, is not a thing you learn to do, for the how involves a technique, which may be mechanical, and there is simply no way that you can experience oneness in a mechanical way. You don't need to know how. You need only to desire. God is seeking you. One woman had a naively brilliant realization. She said, "Aha, now I see. God is praying for me." When you let go and become open and receptive, the divine flow springs forth speedily. I prefer to use the term the silence instead of meditation, for it puts the emphasis on the state of consciousness instead of a mental exercise. Jesus says, "Go into your room and shut the door." And in praying, do not heap up empty phrases. Matthew 6, verses 6 through 7. In other words, wordless silence. Normally, prayer is chiefly concerned with words, whether spontaneous words or those taken out of a prayer book. With these, the average person says their prayers. I often say that learning is what remains when you have forgotten everything you have heard. In this same sense, prayer is what you experience beyond the words that you repeat. If you don't experience anything beyond your words, then you may not be really praying. You are just mumbling words and mouthing propositions. This is not the high-level prayer we are talking about. Prayer is where you are in consciousness. From the wisdom of ancient China, there is a saying that if a person be absolutely quiet, the heavenly heart will manifest itself. To be absolutely quiet. This is not easy, for most of us are so conditioned to activity and noise that silence is deafening. Have you been throwing buckets of nothing on the flames? Be still. Turn away from the tendency to plunge into prayer by rattling off your repertoire of affirmations. Now, in truth, we believe in the prayer of affirmation rather than supplication. We speak the word of truth. But unless we become centered in the source of power within, we may use affirmations and treatments like a cosmic club with which we try to beat off the terrors of night and day. We talk of the power of the spoken word, but words have no power of themselves. They are marvelous instruments of power if we are in tune with the divine flow. Otherwise, when we are working with a problem, there is a tendency to start mouthing affirmations as if we were throwing darts. Consider an archer in target practice. The archer stands on the archery line, bow and arrow in hand, facing a target 50 yards in the distance. Now, the object is to send the arrow to the target. The intellect might logically lead one to fling the arrow as far as possible. But you can't fling an arrow more than a few yards, There is certainly no way you could get it to the target in this way. That is why you have a bow. You fix the arrow in the bow, left arm stiff, arrow fixed to the string with the thumb and index finger of your right hand. Then you pull the arrow back, back, back. Your object is to send the arrow to the target, but you are pulling the arrow away from the target. There is a secret process. You pull the arrow back as far as you can, building up great latent energy. Then what do? Flick the arrow out? No. You simply let it go. That's correct. Just let it go. And swoosh, the arrow flies straight and true toward the distant target. It is a good illustration explaining the role of the silence in prayer. We want to pray for the condition out there, but we need to let go and go down our well to experience and become imbued with transcendent energy. Then we may look on the object from which we are praying, and with no anxious effort, simply take our word of truth, let it go, and swoosh, it goes forth to accomplish that whereto it is sent. And now, mystery of mysteries, the word which you hear is not mine, but the Father's who sent me. John 14, verse 24. It is a reminder that I of myself can do nothing, but through the power of God in me, I can do all things. I have little power in my human consciousness, but when I am lifted up into the Christ consciousness and attuned to the divine flow, I can do great things. Within you right now and all the time, there is a transcendent power. It is important to take time frequently to be still and get centered at the still point within. That is the consciousness level where you are the focus of the limitless energy of the universe. Many persons complain that they never have original ideas. They say, "Oh, it would be nice to be creative. I really admire creative people, but no inspiration ever comes to me." And I often boldly say, "Why don't you get still and listen?" Often these people are so busy talking, usually about their deficiencies and the injustices rained upon them, that they never really get themselves out of the way so as to experience themselves at the point of oneness. It is as impossible for one who is surrounded with the ceaseless babble of conversation to experience the flow of creative ideas as it is for pure water to flow through a pipe containing crude oil. There is never a moment in your life when the guidance you desire or the creative ideas you need are not present within you, as dynamically present as the force of gravity is present. The more we know about Homo sapiens, this person you are, the more we know that you are a cosmic creature with the whole universe concentrated in you. You are potentially the greatest concentration of energy in the world. Through the projection of this energy, which is precisely what prayer is about, you become God in action. Jesus demonstrated what you can do and be when you concentrate your spiritual energies. He proved that there is always enough power within you to accomplish whatever you need, provided it is constructively applied. We are dealing with silence as a part of your prayer process. I prefer the term silence over meditation, for it tends to distinguish the process from the Eastern practice. It is a vital part of prayer, the step of going down the well within to touch the cosmic stream. Again, it is not praying to God, but praying from the consciousness of God. The way of the silence is to plumb the depths within and feel your oneness with God. Then project the power toward that which concerns you. You may want to speak some words of truth in a treatment and affirmation. I will say more about this specifically in the next chapter. One of the most important experiences for all persons is the desire to turn from the confusion of life at the circumference. The prodigal son in the far country came to himself. He suddenly realized, I don't belong here. I want to go home. I will arise and go unto my father. But you see, this did not involve going anywhere in a geographical sense. It was simply a matter of waking up. Meister Eckhart went right to the heart of this parable when he commented that the prodigal was in the far country, but the father was at home in the center of his being. The prodigal in the far country represents living at the circumference of being in sensual and materialistic consciousness. It is the dream sleep of human consciousness. The prodigal came to himself. He woke up. This is the secret of the silence. We have believed that the root of reality is out there in the world of money, possessions, relationships, and circumstances. We go off in an endless search for the holy grail of meaning in our work, in acquisitions, and in getting turned on by special persons. But when we come to ourselves, we realize that the goal is to find it not out there, but within ourselves. The answer is in the way of the silence. It is a vital step in the prayer process. In our desire to find help in a time of need, our tendency is to commence reciting rote prayers or metaphysical statements. In the science of prayer, we are suggesting first getting relaxed and receptive, letting go of stress and anxiety. Then, as a second step, before we proceed to speak words of truth, we seek to become established in oneness with the flow of spiritual energy within. This is the place of meditation, or the silence. The question may be asked, what do I meditate upon? But answering this question may give rise to meditating about, and soon we are meditating about our problems. This serves to emphasize the negative over and over and a veritable orgy of concentrated worry. This is not prayer. We have pointed out that it is helpful to write out a list of the things that you want to pray about. When you are satisfied that you have accounted for all your concerns, then the list has fulfilled its purpose just in the writing. So, lay it aside, perhaps even burn it up in a symbolic letting go. You see, you should not seek answers in your time of silence. Just draw back the bow, get centered in the cosmic flow. Human consciousness tends to focus on doing something, but as you let go, you must let go the sense of doing and become established in the awareness of not doing. Imagine yourself experiencing a great insurgence of energy, all the while keeping the mind in an attitude of don't give a darness. Take a moment now to have a visualization exercise. Imagine an ocean scene with the water moving turbulently and with many great white-capped waves. Now, it is your image, so you can deal with it as you will. Imagine that you are one of the waves. The wave that is you moves through the ocean. It has body. It has motion. What is this wave that is you? It is the ocean formed at the point into a wave. It is never more nor less than ocean. Now, what is your relationship with God? You are the activity of God expressing as you. And you can never be more nor less than God. God is in you as the ocean is in a wave. See the ocean becoming calm and the waves becoming smaller. See the whole body of water becoming placid and eventually becoming smooth as glass. What happened to the wave that is you? It is where it always was and what it always was. The ocean expressing at this point as a wave. It is simply a potential. but it is there. And now, see this in your relationship with God as you become still, still, still. Get the sense of losing your desires, your ego, your sometimes turbulent personality. Be still and know that I am God. Perhaps you have long had trouble in saying, I am God. But in this context, it is easy, isn't it? Think about this. In the Bhagavad Gita, we read, he whose self is established in oneness, whose vision is everywhere, sees the self in all beings in the self. An exercise like this can be helpful in getting out of a problem consciousness, breaking down the walls that separate and cutting away the loose ends that confuse, getting the sense that there is only God. How long should you rest in this transcendent consciousness? Actually, time is relative. One answer might be as long as you can hold the image in concentration without stress. It is a recharging process. It depends on how drained you may have been. And remember, this is not something that you are doing. Think of a battery being charged. Does it need to have something to do? No. It simply accepts the charge. Just be still and know. It is good to have a special time and place to engage in your silent time. But you can have a silence anywhere at any time. Wherever you may be, you may plug into what Easterners refer to as the mother sea of consciousness. In the context of prayer, we want to see the silence not as its own end, but as a creative way to achieve the greater end of projecting prayer power. However, there is a discipline involved, which can be achieved by practice. It is helpful to have an occasional silent time just to develop skill in concentrating at the point of oneness. Don't be deluded into the belief that this silence calls for assuming a special position of the body. Yoga positions may be helpful as an exercise or as a symbolic gesture, but they most certainly are not necessary. Meditation systems often stress the importance of breathing. And certainly, most persons need to learn to breathe more efficiently. But this should not be made into a fetish. It is good to begin the silent time with a few deep breaths, holding the thought that you are breathing in the life and breath of the Almighty, and breathing out all the impurities of mind and body. Again, it can be an effective symbolic gesture. I have a simple technique that has been very effective for me. On the inhalation, I form the words, God is. And on the exhalation, I say, I am. Breathe normally, but affirm on the breath, God is, I am. God is, I am. God is, I am. Inhale, exhale. Don't make it a mechanical thing. It has little to do with the meditation process, but it can become a symbolic gesture that you can identify with. If you are unable to sleep at night, you can use this exercise to make the sleepless period spiritually productive. In time, after much practice, You will associate this act of breathing with preparation for a silence, and thus, by drawing a few breaths, you will go right into a state of oneness. A quick drawing of the breath in a time of crisis or emergency can become a symbolic gesture, leading to an instant release of the energy of divine protection. Don't go into a silence expecting to have a conscious experience. Things may happen to you and in you, but more often than not, it will simply be an infilling that will give no sensation whatever, just the feeling of well-being. Don't look for ESP or psychic experiences, or your subconscious mind may oblige by producing such an experience for you, which may have nothing to do with the spiritual goals of your silence and may actually mislead you. Remember, aside from your times of practice, the silence is not an end in itself. It is a means to the end of becoming imbued with power, building a focus of spiritual energy. Then you project this energy as you speak your word of truth. You pull the arrow back, 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 then you let it go in the word of truth. You may simply voice the words, I am, which constitute the most powerful affirmation you can utter. Or you may use the I am and God is breathing exercise. Or you may use a prayer treatment such as, I am a perfect child of God. I am one with divine love and infinite substance. I am in the flow of God's great good that is unfolding for me now. But remember, you are not just mouthing words. The words you speak become the spirit expressing itself through you. Your words become the channel through which there is an outforming of answers without ceasing. True prayer is not indulging in the tensions and frustrations that have led you to engage in the prayer, for this would be extremely counterproductive. Prayer must involve a letting go, a recentering of yourself in oneness with God, and then, instead of praying to God about the problem, you pray from the consciousness of God, projecting spiritual power in a transcendent flow to heal and harmonize and make you prosper. In other words, you must get away from the sense of struggling, frantically beating on the doors of heaven, trying desperately to solicit God's help. Oh God, I need you now. If God were the anthropomorphic being we tend to relate to him as being, he might say, all right, if you need me, be still and accept it. For my answer was present in you even before you asked for my help. Be still and know. Be still, and the Father who knows what things you have need of will reward you openly. The kingdom of God is within you, your very own divine potential. Be still. Accept this transcendent self of you, this spiritual process in you. Trust this process. Its action